Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. And today on Patriot Radio, our guest, Matt Geiger, talks about the current events of John Bolton and what the next 90 days bode. And also South Korea becoming close, cozying up even to the atheist communist Chinese party. President Trump signs a series of executive orders preparing the way for what looks like indictments and potentially a declaration of the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. And these precursor presidential executive orders, well, they really give us a clue and an insight into the near-term effects on the United States of America. Also, will there actually be peace in Ukraine? We're going to look in depth at it. And that's why here at Patriot Radio, we want you to know everything. For you and your family to be prepared, the times that are ahead and the times that are already upon us. So please follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram. And share that with your friends and family. And also, if you need prayer, part of our ministry here is to walk with you in prayer, patriotradio.us/prayer. We want to pray with you, for you. So please, these are opportunities for you. And again, part of the ministry of media is giving people the truth so that they can make good decisions for their family, and that they can have a local impact, which in turn will have a national impact. And that brings us now to your wisdom from the Word, coming to us from Psalms 29, verse 9. Some of you probably have never even heard this before. The voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth and strips the forest bare. Now, trees in the Scripture typically represent leaders. And so the idea of pruning leaders is a critical concept, especially for this time, that certain things need to be pruned out of our lives, including the lives of leaders. Then it says, and in his temple, everything says glory. The Lord sat as king at the flood. Yes, the Lord sits as king forever. The Lord will give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. So peace in the time of chaos, the church becomes the beacon of hope to everyone around. And God's going to give us strength for this time that's coming, because this time that's coming is going to expose great evil. And there are going to be forces at work that are going to try to foment civil unrest. Their goal, a color revolution here in the United States of America, culminating in 2028. And what stands between them and success is me and you, but we all have to stand together. And that brings us to your daily intelligence briefing. Coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
So OpenAI pursuing kids with AI signing a contract with guess who? The toy maker Mattel. So I could see AI being in these toys. And by the way, we're going to do an entire episode on AI and what's really behind it, what its purpose is. I think you're going to find this absolutely fascinating. But raising a child with AI, yeah, that's what's really being said here. And the answer should, for all of us, be, of course, no. Also, Microsoft AI CEO, chatbots are causing psychosis 2 years ago, Pat Wood issued a blanket warning that AI would push the world into psychosis, and the creators of AI and their leaders have it in their power to stop this on the spot, but they refuse to do so. Even with the blind and stubborn arrogance of big pharma companies, they refuse to stop making harmful drugs. This is all Pat Wood talking here, or writing. Addiction means more customers. Customers mean more money. So what is he talking about? Reports of delusions and AI psychosis and unhealthy attachment keep rising. And as hard as it may be to hear, this is not something confined to people already at risk of mental health issues. Dismissing these as fringe cases only help them continue. This is from Mustafa Soleiman, Microsoft's head of artificial intelligence. When we do this next episode on AI, you're probably going to want to stop maybe even using it. Or if you do use it, use certain particular AIs and keep them confined only to specific tasks. The isolation of humanity now with something that can talk back to you, again, really cuts at the core of what does it mean for us to be human. And this is something that we should be talking about right now, not letting our children discover for themselves. It's our job to shepherd in this space. Tulsi Gabbard, the Five Eyes. So Tulsi Gabbard directed American intelligence agencies not to share intelligence on the Ukraine peace negotiations, even with our closest allies. The members of the so-called Five Eyes, for those of you that don't know, are Great Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. These nations have a unique relationship where they share intelligence with each other. Tulsi Gabbard classified the negotiations as no foreign. In other words, it could not be shared with a foreign power. This brings up a couple of great questions, as Sam Faddis rightly acknowledges. First, we don't trust our allies even with some of these negotiations to leak it. Second, some people in the media and some so-called national security experts quickly attacked Tulsi Gabbard for doing this. So they're okay with us sharing our negotiation. That doesn't even make sense. They're U.S. negotiations. The fact that they've been shared in the past explains a lot. Why more farmers are turning to AI machines. As worker shortages persist on American farms, some are turning to novel solutions. Artificial intelligence-powered harvesters, drones, and precision farming systems are quickly entering the mainstream of American agriculture. As we said before, this is one of the reasons that illegals are being deported, because they're going to be replaced with robots and AI. And that article proves it. Musk companies sue Apple and OpenAI, allege monopolistic practices. iPhone users stand to lose as the tie-up between Apple and OpenAI allegedly increases prices and offers less features, says the lawsuit. So you're going to see this struggle between the oligarchs of who's going to be in charge of AI going into the future, at least who has the biggest stake, certainly. This is actually healthy. This is actually a good thing. I'm not saying the oligarchy. I'm saying the fact that there is some accountability that might play out in the courts. So I'm going to leave that here for just a second, because there's a question. OpenAI and Apple, what are their motivations for AI? And Elon Musk, what is his motivation for AI? Is that why there is such an attack on Elon Musk? Did he actually want to do the right thing? Well, some interesting answers, at least on one video, from ChatGPT itself. But we're going to wait for a different episode for that. German authorities charge U.S. citizens with attempting to spy for China. Former contractor for U.S. Defense Department allegedly attempted to sell U.S. military information to the Chinese regime. So, again, you're going to see more of this happening as these networks are disrupted. This is going to continue. What we're really looking for is the reaction, and also, do these cases begin to implicate leaders in a former administration? And will this lead to the designation of certain entities in the United States as foreign terrorist organizations because of their connection to terrorist activities and our adversaries. Also, China's social insurance crackdown could devastate businesses. In Shanghai's Putuo district, a community restaurant recently posted a help wanted sign on its door encouraging men aged 60 and older and women aged 55 and older to apply for a job with generous pay. Younger people need not apply, it states. So what's happening here is a transformation and really a trust issue in society. Now, you'll see older folks working at restaurant jobs today and gladly doing it and doing it well. Some of them may not be so glad because they shouldn't be. They should be retired by now. Retired. But the fact is that there is an issue with the next generation that even in China is being experienced. So, all of that said, not to offend anybody or get anybody all riled up, the Chinese regime is simply running out of money, can't keep propping things up. That's the implication for China. The implication for the United States is the younger generation even going to have the opportunity for jobs because it's going to be replaced by AI? We need to ask these questions now. And what if China implodes? Does anything come up in its place? Wow, I don't know. But I find it a little hard to believe this next statement that President Trump made an agreement with China that will allow 600,000 Chinese students into the United States. That would be actually helping prop up the Communist Chinese Party. Also, Indian ambassador confirmed that India is going to continue purchasing Russian oil despite President Trump's pressure. That was the public statement. However, in reality, two of the largest companies in India, actually the largest company in India, has decided they're going to start buying their oil from, or at least a portion of their oil, from Brazil. So yes, there is actually a shift away. We got to be careful with the rhetoric that's said by government officials and look at what companies are actually doing. This tells me that Russia's time is marked now, especially as that number grows of the amount of oil purchased from Brazil. Trump also posted on Truth Social prior to his meeting with the leader of South Korea. What is going on in South Korea seems like a purge or a revolution. We can't have that and do business there. I'm seeing the new president today at the White House. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The bottom line is that Trump does need to confront this because the leader of South Korea and some of his officials are actually entertaining cozying up to China. That's a huge sea change, and particularly, as Gordon Chang says, a coup. Now you kind of understand what was happening last year with everything in South Korea. And we also talked about it at that time here on Patriot Radio. That brings us now to the Middle East front. American military forces have initiated a sudden and unannounced withdrawal from the Ain al-Assad and Victory bases in Iraq, a move that appears to significantly accelerated a previously negotiated timeline for the drawdown of the international coalition's mission. So it looks like those troops are going to be pulled out, and I suspect that that's happening because they're going to be repositioned elsewhere. So it tells me something is in the offing. The Houthi regime is learning the hard way that it will pay a heavy price for its attacks on Israel. Whoever attacks us, we attack them, and whoever plans to attack us, we attack them. This after Israeli airstrikes hit the Houthis hard over the weekend, and those strikes will likely continue into the near term. Also, an incident at the Nasser hospital has a lot of people up in arms. But on June 22nd, an incident also highlighted how Nasser Hospital has been turned into a Hamas-controlled area. Hamas Aero unit fighters hijacked a bus carrying workers from the American aid group GHF, beat and tortured them. And when the wounded were brought to the hospital, members of Hamas's Saham unit blocked their treatment and incited a mob that lynched them in the courtyard, killing 12. So, just be clear in the context of what's happening in the Gaza Strip. Also, Hezbollah chief named Qassem, blasted the Lebanese government's move to disarm the group, calling it a grave mistake imposed by U.S.-Israeli pressure and declaring it unconstitutional. It looks like there may be a new civil war in Lebanon brewing. Israel Prime Minister says ready to support Lebanon's efforts to disarm Hezbollah. I'm sure that probably won't help the situation. Also, for decades, Palestinian radicals have wreaked havoc across the Middle East. I want you to take a look at these two cats here. On the left is Saddam Hussein. On the right is Yasser Arafat. Now, Saddam Hussein was part of the Ba'ath Party. Well, as we've talked about the red-green alliance between jihadis and communists, the Ba'ath Party was communist. And when we invaded Iraq, communist flags, in 2003, communist flags were unfurled and flown visibly. You can go back and look at some of the videos on the internet if you want to. But nobody really ever talks about Saddam Hussein's ties to communists. Nor do they talk about Yasser Arafat being a KGB asset, trained asset, handled asset in the Middle East. And General Mihai Pachipa's book, Disinformation, he clearly stated that 4,000 KGB agents had been infiltrated into Islamic countries. I think it was by 1970. So again, the red-green axis. Let's not forget what birthed the Palestinian Authority in the first place. And that brings us to the break. When we come back, some significant movement on the Russia front regarding Russia's economy and President Trump signing some orders that really bode for accountability in the future.
What if I told you you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
And we're back with the Russia front. Modern 21st century procurement. Well, yes, it's becoming huge. Logistics wins wars. Ukrainian online marketplace points system has seen over 20,000 drones and EW jammers, or 25 million ordered in just 1 month. So Ukraine's logistics now is catching up, and particularly on the drone warfare side. In fact, Taiwan is actually taking some of these ideas and technology to produce drones in Taiwan, but do it at a full production scale. There's only a partial production scale, at least on some of these things in Ukraine, particularly with the unmanned surface vehicles that are on the water. So when I say this, the reason I'm bringing this up is that the logistics are shifting significantly. You're seeing drone attacks from Ukraine almost every other day. Oil refineries particularly, and the entire oil infrastructure in Russia have been the targets of these attacks. And it's important to understand that these oil refineries in Russia are going to have a hard time bringing them back online because a lot of Western sanctions prevent Western technology from bringing them back online. Also, Russian fuel storage and distribution system going up in flames. Here's satellite imagery that showed every single tank in the yellow square has been destroyed or severely damaged. So you're seeing, again, this attack on Russia's oil infrastructure, Russia's economy, because, again, 50% of their economy comes from the oil industry, and it should be the government coffers filled with this. So if that's the case, Ukraine strategically is clearly pointing out that it is going to beat Russia in the long term by taking out its energy infrastructure. I'm not saying that they'll be successful. I'm just telling you what they're planning on doing. So speaking earlier today with NBC News, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that no meeting has been planned between President Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, but claims that Putin is prepared to meet with Zelensky. Lavrov claims that Zelensky is an illegitimate leader, cannot sign any ceasefire agreement. So we're going to see this kind of continue. Again, watching what India is doing, watching the attacks on Russian oil infrastructure. Just expect those attacks to continue into the near term, and expect the continued shift away least by many countries, from Russian oil. Loud explosions were heard as a fire broke out at a large warehouse in the port of Hamburg, Germany. According to preliminary information, several people have been injured. Thick black smoke is visible across the city, and the fire department is on site with more than 100 emergency personnel. Exploding gas cylinders and containers are making it difficult for firefighters to approach the flames. I'm going to say that you will see more of these types of incidents. Some of them are going to be sabotage. Some are going to be claimed to be just accidents. Either way, I believe there's going to be a push here in the next year to really begin securing critical infrastructure sites. I hope it's not too late to do that. Not just in Europe, but in the United States. During his visit to Kyiv, Norwegian PM Støre emphasized that Ukraine is defending a critical principle on the European level by resisting Russia's territorial aggression. Ukraine's actions is protecting more than just its own sovereignty. So you still have the mindset in Europe backing Ukraine 100%. It's going to make, this is, again, talking mindset, this is going to make a peace deal very, very difficult, which is probably why there's silence right now. Also, Polish President Karol Nawrocki vetoed a bill extending support to Ukrainian refugees, putting funding for Ukraine's Starlink satellite internet at risk. And without the bill, Warsaw no longer has a legal basis to continue financing Starlink. So some of the allies now shifting away from Ukraine as well. Not totally, but just in significant ways where they're trying to force, I think, Ukrainian refugees back to Ukraine. Also, an American tourist, a hero, was stabbed in the face by a Syrian asylum seeker after he stepped in to stop the Syrian from sexually assaulting a German woman on a tram in Dresden, Germany. He released the video about how the Germans handled the situation, and well, there need to be laws in place. Wait a minute. Oh, there already are, to protect and defend Good Samaritans like this man. And again, you're going to see more of this. We're already starting to see this stuff in the United States of America. We need to stand up now, call it for what it is. The attempt to overthrow Western civilization. Also, on the national front, there was a Sharia arrest in Dearborn. Non-Muslim was jailed for a Facebook post while Islamic death chants go unpunished, according to the Rare Foundation. And interestingly, there was an article came out just before we got on the air here from London where a man was arrested for saying, "We like bacon." What if I told you you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today. And we're back with our guest today, Matt Geiger. He's the founder of Verity Metals and vertigold.com. Matt, it's always great to have you on Patriot Radio.
Always good to be with you, my man. Good to see you.
It happened. Someone actually had their house raided early morning. John Bolton, Mr. Mustache, the Lorax, as some people call him, whatever. The bottom line is he was raided, and J.D. Vanson came out a couple days later and said, listen, this is just the preliminary. This is the start of a huge and wide-ranging investigation. How are you taking this? What are you seeing?
Well, I share in the sentiments of, let's say, somebody like Roger Stone, who was raided, and I loved his Twitter post about, how does it feel, John Bolton, to be raided? John Bolton is obviously a warmonger. My guess is that ever since he had his security clearances cut, that basically cuts off their value as operatives. And my opinion is what would be interesting to hear is what documents were actually recovered from his house. Is he aiding and abetting the war in Ukraine? Is he aiding and abetting war with Iran? Is he trying to do backdoor negotiations with these countries in order to thwart the efforts of Trump, his administration? My guess is most likely so.
So let's kind of set the big picture stage here. It looks like Trump is cleaning up the streets so that they don't have protesters to riot, cleaning up the criminal elements when he's about to bring forth even more serious indictments and higher profile, more prominent people. That looks like where this is headed, and in the near term, like the next 90 days.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I think what Trump had to do is he had to start with a, so-called Republican to get these raids started. But, you see what's happening with Letitia James. She's now saying, Trump's weaponizing and politicizing the justice system. And then you look at what that lady's done. So in a sense, I think, you look back and it's almost like Trump had to go through the indictments and the phony felonies that they had to put on him. He almost had to go through that so that now no one can say that this is political, right? You want to talk political, it's what these people did. So yeah, I would expect the home of, somebody like John Brennan, Peter Strzok, I'd love to see raids on these guys.
Does this end up with Barack Obama? Because Trump kind of came out and said that he was immune, but immunity, presidential immunity anyway, can be breached if there are overt felonious acts, and particularly if there's a tie to a foreign country.
Yeah, the presidential immunity is something that I had a misunderstanding of. If these guys are involved in things like treason and worse, that immunity isn't going to cover anything. Furthermore, from what I understand is that if let's say Obama were to go to trial, he wouldn't be able to plead the fifth if he was asked direct questions. So he would have to answer honestly in order to get that presidential immunity. So in effect, he would have to admit to the crimes that he's committed in order to be granted the immunity from those crimes.
Right. So either way, a witness,
court of public opinion.
Yeah, either way, a witness or a defendant. I mean, either way, this is being set up so well. I really appreciate how this is being handled. You can see it. I mean, they're building the evidence. They're building the evidence. So that comes, what was John Bolton involved in? I mean, what is he connected to that would spur this?
Well, we can only guess, right? But I would look toward, look what happened when Trump took office in 2017. What did he do? He went around the world. He went to North Korea, right? He went to these different countries. What happened after that? Obama went to these same countries days after in order to try to renegotiate whatever Trump put into place, which in my opinion, that should be covered over the Logan Act and fully enforced, right?
Exactly. And so John Bolton, I think people are missing this piece. Yes, he got us involved in wars. I think it's the covert action because he was in charge of a huge pot of money at USAID.
Yeah, well, what else did we find at USAID? It was that who's the lady from Georgia, the one who was on Star Trek. She played the president of the world. The big chubby lady. Trying to think of her name. She had something like a $2 billion fund through USAID that was uncovered. She's sitting on literally $2 billion. So Stacey, what's her name?
Abrams? Is that who you're talking about?
Abrams.
Yeah.
Yes, Stacey Abrams. They uncovered that she was sitting on a $2 billion fund. So, I mean, what is John Bolton sitting on? What are all these people sitting on? I think there's a lot about these politicians and these operatives that we don't know about, but it will come to light, and that's the beauty of it.
So we see the surge of troops right now into the capital of the United States. Some people just having a hissy fit about it. But the FBI came out and said, look, we made 1,000 arrests. Crime is to almost zero right now.
Beautiful.
And then Trump says, well, this looks like a template for New York or Chicago next.
This is exactly what I was telling people, is Trump is going to clean up D.C. because he's got power there. He's got control over there. He's going to set an example. There's a very great interview that Cara Castronova did with the Gateway Pundit. And she's interviewing, you could tell they're everyday people. Wasn't anything scripted. It was a bunch of people just saying, we love it. Go Trump, clean this place up. People are getting shot in the streets. I would imagine a lot of people in, South Chicago, New York, LA. I mean, the people want this stuff. The only people that don't want it are the corrupt governors and mayors, right? They're the ones that are complaining. The people want it. So I love what Trump does. I always look for this, is that what Trump does is he pits the people against the power structure. And when he does that, the power structure has to do very unfavorable things, which, yeah, right now they could probably get into, voter fraud and whatnot. But when he eliminates the voter fraud, which is another thing that Trump's doing, going back to paper ballots. You can see he's getting that ready to go. These people stand no chance. They're never going to win another election again if they're free and fair.
So one of the other interesting precursors that he signed an executive order regarding flag burning, because that is something that the communists, and the jihadis too, love to do in the streets. So you can see this being set up. If they try to come out and protest, he wants to have the ability, just based on one of their core actions, to come after them as well.
Exactly. It's I always thought that there would be riots in the streets. That we're getting to that point where we're going to probably start seeing arrests. We've seen the low level people get arrested. Now we're going to start seeing the higher up people probably in the next couple months, all throughout the next year or two. He needed to figure out a way in order to kind of shave off elements of the resistance fighters that are going to be thrown out into the streets. And he's doing. You're witnessing it right now. It started with the No Kings protest in L.A. Sending in the National Guard. Nothing ever happened in those protests, or very little, because of the National Guard and because of the actions of President Trump.
So we should expect more of this over the next 90 days.
No doubt about it. It's exciting.
It is exciting. So, the recent pictures of Jerome Powell look like, he looks like he's a scared little kid. I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate it. That's the objective analysis of his pictures, his facial expressions, his demeanor. I think that the rates are going to be slashed in September. What do you think?
I don't doubt it at all. They're going to try to keep rates where they are as long as possible. I think what Trump's got to do is he's got to keep putting pressure on the Fed. I love what he did a couple of weeks ago, we talked about it, confronting Jerome Powell about the over budgeting of $1 billion on the new construction of the Federal Reserve building. All while what's Trump doing right now is he's been transitioning us. We've talked about this on the show. He's transitioning us from the Federal Reserve System back to the Treasury system piece by piece. So I think the more exposure we see of Jerome Powell, the more likely it is he's going to start taking some action, and we'll actually start seeing this transition, much more clearly. It'll be much more obvious that this transition is moving, which is why, not to give myself a plug, but I will, which is why you really want to take your money and do the same thing, right? Convert your money from the Federal Reserve System and move it into the Treasury system while this transition takes place.
That being gold and silver.
Absolutely.
So with everything swirling around right now, I look at the left and I look at the jihadis. They're gonna know that their time is short. So do you think they're gonna try to pull something ahead of time, since Trump is way into their decision cycle right now? It's almost like they're gonna have no choice to try to go early.
It's a scary time. I think that they have to push back. I mean, we're dealing with obviously the deep state. That could be anywhere from ISIS cells that they brought into this country years before even Trump took office. They have to make a move. Will it happen tomorrow or a week from now, 6 months from now? Your guess is as good as mine. But they're going to have to fight back because Trump is he's doing his job.
Yeah. He is doing his job. He's doing it very well. When we come back from the break, more with Matt Geiger talking about President Trump and the overall plan to not just clean up America's streets, but to take down the corrupt cabal that has been holding America in shackles for decades.
What if I told you could convert your 401k or your IRA into gold? While your retirement is being beat up by a volatile stock market and inflation, it could instead be resting safely in physical gold at a place of your own choosing, including your own business. Look, gold has increased 50% in just the last year. Stock market, it's been nothing but a roller coaster. So protect your retirement from market chaos by calling Verity Metals today.
So we're back with our guest, Matt Geiger, talking about what President Trump is doing and kind of the trajectory here for the next 90 days, specifically heading into November and Thanksgiving. I think he's trying to get this all done before the holidays. It's just what the timing looks like to me. How are you seeing the timing here?
I mean, the timing could be anything. It's kind of move, counter move, move, counter move. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the riots, as we just discussed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Fed. I always find that what I always look for is kind of how the political elements line up to the financial elements. If something happens politically, something financially is going to happen. We're also entering into harvest season. This is the time, 9/11. This is usually where, right, the crash of 2008. It happened, I think, on 9/11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So this is really the time of year where these guys really like to cause chaos. They like to cause problems. So, I don't say it to fearmonger, but, watch your back.
Right. And, Yuri Bezmenov, a.k.a. Thomas Schumann, he defected to Canada and actually, I think to the United States as well, or at least there was a relationship there. But bottom line is he talked about the 4 stages of subversion and that the Soviet plan. I mean, this is a guy that worked for Izvestia, the disinformation arm of the KGB. Talked about the Soviet plan over time was to first demoralize. And that's not to lower morale. That's actually to take morals out of a society. Because when you do that, it makes it less stable. And then the second phase was destabilization, which was attacking the traditional institutions of the United States of America. And so people would lose trust in them, which is, they've been very effective at that. People have lost trust in the FBI. People have lost trust in Cracker Barrel, for example. I mean, these people are very adept at doing this. And then the third stage is crisis and chaos. 4th stage is normalization. In fact, if any of you have heard this word, it is literally a KGB active measure, a Soviet active measure that was designed to get people to just accept the way things are. And it's called this, normalization, the new normal. So I think we're at the crisis and chaos stage. They're going to try to do something here very shortly regarding crisis and chaos. And everybody that I've been talking to recently is, okay, what are we going to do to weather the storm? Because even if Trump pulls everything off he wants to, there's still a storm that's coming. What say you, Matt?
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, look, we still have to exit this system. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is, look at it like this is, our monetary system's controlled by the deep state. Our medical system, right? We learned during COVID that the hospitals that we thought were there to heal us were there to kill us. Our legal system is completely corrupted. So, if you want to leave this system, I think Trump kind of looks at these chaos moments as an opportunity to, instead of, just allowing some crisis to happen so that they can normalize it eventually. I think what he wants to do is he wants to use these crises to wake the people up and show people who the true enemy is. And the true enemy here are these people that are probably nameless, faceless people. I mean, the Adam Schiffs of the world, these different politicians, these are just the representatives for people that we don't know, that we don't see. So I think it's as much as bad as the chaos could be. I do think it presents a great opportunity to wake up the average American, including our Democrat friends across the aisle, to say, hey, these are not our friends. We need to all get on the same page and move this country in a different direction.
So 3 main things to really look for in the next 90 days. And the first thing is the declaration of the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. Because in the Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror financing trial ever successfully prosecuted in U.S. history, there's a whole list of unindicted co-conspirators. All of them were listed as part of the Muslim Brotherhood, enablers of the Muslim Brotherhood, etc. This was upheld on appeal as well. So that's the first one to look for. The second one to look for are the other arrests and indictments that we've already been talking about of the communists and globalist enablers. Then there's a third one, and I want to get into this right now. You see redistricting around the country, and somebody put out the percentages in a lot of the East Coast states that, look, there's no Republican districts in any of those states. They've already done it. The Democrats have already done this. What Trump is trying to do is get rid of the apportionment fraud and re-establish the base as it should be for one person, one citizen, one vote. So with that, Texas has passed redistricting. California is threatening it, but then there's a whole host of other red states that are threatening to do it as well and are very likely going to do it. How do you see midterm redistricting really shaping up? And is this going to result in any social unrest, do you think?
Oh, no doubt about it. And, the redistricting, it's just amazing that, the redistricting in Texas, the Democrats come forward. They've been doing this forever. Basically cheating the system. And now when Texas wants to do it, all of a sudden, it's, we're such bad people. We're corrupt. We're rigging elections, blah, blah, blah. It's the complete opposite. According to Trump, he says that if we redistrict properly, we could take another 100 seats in Congress. Yep. I mean, if we had another 100 seats, that would be unbelievable. Furthermore, I think that you also have to implement paper ballots. We're starting to see some of that legislation. So when you have paper ballots plus the redistricting, the proper redistricting, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And I don't think, like the Jasmine Crockett's, I don't think that these people are really winning elections. I don't think that Gavin Newsom won that recall against Larry Elder. I think Larry Elder won that recall. So we have to get rid of, we have to do the redistricting, but I also think just as importantly is we have to go back to paper ballots. That's going to be just as, if not more important.
You get rid of those mail-in ballots. We did this. I actually introduced legislation here in Washington for years. You go back to the polls, go back to paper ballots and counting locally like they used to by precinct. And Trump also brought up 55 million visa holders. You add that number to the number of, most people think about 30 million illegals. You're talking 85 million people in this country, that some of whom are voting in this country. And I mean, you can't, visa holders is a little bit complicated because you have a business visa holder. They just come in once in a while, but they still have an active visa. I'm not talking about that. This is potentially, I think most people are blown away by this, but this is potentially a huge open door to take on counterterrorism, looking at these visas. What are you hearing the effect of that on the financial markets and on businesses and manufacturing here? Because, I mean, 85 million people, that is gigantic.
It's enormous. I mean, I think of even just the housing market. This stuff drives up the price of, somebody's average, you think of renters, for example. When you have massive occupancy, everybody's paying a fortune to rent. I mean, if we got these people out of the country, you would see home prices drop, which would make everything much more affordable for everybody. A lot of these people take benefits from the system. That just puts a weight on the country. But when I saw that 55 million figure of the visa holders, it was like, no one's ever talked about this before. That number is just outrageous. That just it just opens up your mind to just, and you think there's 30 million illegals? I think there's 100 million illegals.
Right. I was being the conservative. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's always the conservative number. Whatever they give you, it's always 4 times whatever it is. But you look at Los Angeles, I mean, the traffic is practically disappeared now that they're deporting people. So, I mean, it just goes to show you that this country's just been overlooked. I mean, it really, Pastor Matt, isn't it amazing that our country has been able to sustain this long?
Whew.
I mean, just think about the resilience of the United States and what this country could handle if it had to. When this stuff's all dealt with, and it's going to take some time to do that. I think this country has an unbelievable future ahead when we're America first.
Amen. And there seems to be a reestablishment of the Monroe Doctrine. Obama officially rejected the Monroe Doctrine. It had been in place for 180 years, something like that. Bottom line was the Monroe Doctrine said that we want to foster free countries in our hemisphere, but we don't want foreign interference in our hemisphere. J. Michael Waller kind of lays out a new modern Monroe Doctrine. Trump just sent down 3 destroyers. He's now sending down an amphibious readiness group of Marines. That's huge. So what does that look like for Venezuela? Is he doing that to intercept narco terrorists and drugs and the smuggling routes coming in the United States? What do you think this is about?
I would think it's that. I think, back in 2015 when Trump was, just throwing his hat in the race, I actually said at that time, I said, you know what, it wouldn't be a bad thing to go and invade a place like Mexico, take out the cartels and make Mexico great again as well. That would be a worthwhile fight. Because that's something that directly affects our front line, that it directly affects our country. These wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, all these different places, they have no bearing on us. Something like cleaning up Mexico and South America, that would actually have a huge benefit to both us, but also, I think we also need to be compassionate with a lot of these illegals and not just send them back to our country. We don't want to be our brother's keeper, but we want to be, the best way it's put to me is we want to be our brother's brother. We want to help them sort out their own issues. If we can clean up these countries and help these countries reestablish themselves, they can thrive in Mexico. We can make Mexico great. We can make all South America great. It's just, unfortunately, they've been invaded and infiltrated just like we have by the communists. And look at them. They're real life examples of what this country is about to turn into. Right.
That is the cautionary tale. I've seen reconnaissance drones have been over Mexico for the last several months. No question about that. These are tracked drones. We know that they're over there. I would guess that just I don't have any information on this other than I know how planning works. And I would guess that there are already some elements in Mexico right now doing reconnaissance in Mexico. If Trump sends in special forces fully into Mexico or airstrikes begin in Mexico, I mean, the rest of the world's going to blow up with something like that, or even Venezuela for that matter. How do you think this is pitched to the world so that we don't have a ton of blowback to the United States?
Well, I think you need to. It's a great question. I'm not the expert in this stuff that you are, but I think it's information war, as General Flynn would say. I think maybe what Trump needs to reveal is that hey, there's bioweapon labs on the border of Mexico, right? There's some type of big reveal of very significant information that in the public's mind it could justify striking a place like Mexico and striking the cartels, because our media is not going to be doing him any favors, as we know. I mean, if you look at some of the headlines with Trump and Mexico, you just type into Google Trump and Mexico, every single headline by our own fake news media, it's treasonous. They're all saying, oh, Trump's about to start a war, blah, blah, blah. They're preemptively doing it. I think we need some big information to come out about what's really going on down there.
Yeah, and Venezuela, speaking of that, actually, I just saw an article today on that the Russians were talking about sending drones to Venezuela as a deterrence to the United States of America. I think they're already there. I mean, I think Trump already knows this. I think they were already staging and setting up and using Venezuela as a base of operations for further terror attacks against the United States.
No doubt about it. If it's being reported now, these things have probably been there for years.
Exactly. So what do you think people can do? What if you were going to give people the top 2 things they could do right now to become resilient for the transition that is ahead between the Federal Reserve System and the Treasury system? What would that be?
I mean, of course, I think the precious metals is a great place to be. I mean, look, if I thought, being in the stock market or, any of these other typical places was the right place to be, I'd be sitting on the show advertising my financial advisory, Pastor Matt. I think what you have to do is you have to store the value of your money. I think that, when chaos occurs, that's really what moves the price of gold and silver. There's a lot of financial weapons that these countries have, namely they hold a lot of U.S. debt. So what's to say that these countries don't flood our system with our own bonds, right, and just saturate our money supply, greatly devaluing the dollar, forcing the Federal Reserve to have to buy these things. So you really want to start transitioning your money, protecting it into something physical and constitutional at that. That's why I recommend to people, don't just buy a bar of gold and silver. Go into something like United States coinage. The United States Mint is a division of the United States Treasury. So you have something that's a known weight, it's a known purity. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have the best resale value. And from what I understand, Trump is going to bring us back to a metals-backed currency.
Yeah.
And in the process, if you're sitting there with an IRA or a 401k, you want to convert this stuff to the fundamental asset, which is, a 1 ounce, silver American Eagle, gold American Eagle, even some platinum. The United States Mint, I think, is the way to go. And we don't know when this stuff's going to happen. That's the problem. We don't know when this stuff, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen. We could get off this podcast right now. It could happen in an hour. It could happen in an hour from now. So I just tell people, it's like, when the country's working properly, yes, you want to be in markets. You want to be in things that produce a rate of return. But when the country's not working properly and there's a lot of unknowns and we know that there's going to be chaos, that's when you want to store the value of your money. And I think that's really why the precious metals, the physical precious metals, is the place to be right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt Geiger. Always appreciate your take. Blessings to you and keep up the fight.
Thank you. You too.
Matt Geiger, Verity Metals, converttogold.com. So what can you do? Well, Matt talked about the transition between the two systems. The second thing that I would recommend very strongly is being prepared. Don't take, look, during COVID, I kind of thought, I didn't get that bad. This next round of things that are going to happen, it could get kind of intense. So be prepared, and preparedness takes the fear out of everything. Be prepared, have some food, have some water stored up, try to shoot for 6 months. That way you have no doubt. And if it ends up being 2 weeks, you can help your friends out, you help your family out that haven't been prepared. So just what you can do today is focus on that and ask the Lord in your prayer time, what do you want me to do today? And do what he tells you to do. I think too often we make this too complicated. We make this too onerous and we make it too fearful when we can just ask the Lord, hey, what are your priorities? What's your heart today, Father? And just receive that and do it in the name of Jesus Christ. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. And he is making this generation the greatest one, and the awakening is here. So keep up the fight.